Raider Nation, what's up? You know what time it is. Welcome back to the channel that bleeds silver and black, and today we're diving into a hot topic that's been circling the Raiders rumor mill. We're talking about potential trade packages that could send tight end Michael Mayer to the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, I know it sounds wild, but stick with me. We're going deep into 5 names on the Dolphins roster that would absolutely have to be involved if this deal ever had a chance of happening. Now, before we dive into the names, let me make one thing perfectly clear. I do not want the Raiders to trade Michael Mayer. No way. The kid's got talent. He's still on his rookie deal. And honestly, I think he's already better than Darren Waller. Yeah, I said it. Different style, more well-rounded, better blocker, and in my opinion, more reliable. But as every NFL fan knows, there's always that one deal that makes you pause. That Godfather offer you just can't say no to. And while I don't think Miami's knocking on the door right now, especially after going out and grabbing Darren Waller, I still believe there's a sliver of a chance, however small, that they could be sniffing around, especially if they're not fully sold on Waller staying healthy. Now, this entire show, this whole breakdown, it was all scripted before the Waller trade went down. But the concept still holds weight. If Miami called and said they wanted Mayer, here are 5 players I'd want back in any deal. Because look, I'm not interested in just getting a draft pick. Not when we're talking about someone like Michael Mayer. If you're going to pry him away from Vegas, you better be sending a player that helps this team win now. So let's start with the first name, Quinton Bell, and I'm going to keep it real with you, Raider Nation. Bell is easily the lowest on this list. He's not a flashy name, and most of you probably don't even remember that he was actually drafted by the Raiders back in 2019, 7th round. Didn't make the roster that year, but he was part of the practice squad. Spent some time in Tampa Bay where he actually picked up a Super Bowl ring with Tom Brady. Not bad, right? Bell is now 29 years old, stands 6 foot 4, weighs in at 250 pounds, and last season with the Dolphins he played 258 snaps. He wasn't a star by any means, but his Pro Football Focus grade came in at 6.8, which is solid, especially in the run defense department. He's not someone you build your defense around, but in terms of depth and versatility, yeah, he can help out, especially in that linebacker edge rusher hybrid role. If you give him the freedom to be an athlete, maybe let him push someone like Devin White in training camp, you might be surprised by what he brings to the table. And the price tag, just over $1 million for the upcoming season. Low risk, possibly decent reward. But again, if that's all Miami is offering Bell and maybe a 5th rounder in 2026, I'm not answering that call. It's just not enough. That's the baseline, the bottom of the barrel. From here, things get a whole lot more interesting. Next up, a name with a little more bite, Jordan Brooks. Now we're talking about a legit linebacker, a guy who was drafted in the 1st round back in 2020 by Pete Carroll and spent the last 4 years in Seattle. He knows how to tackle. He's consistent. He's the kind of player who could walk into the Raiders linebacker room and instantly be the best guy there. No shade to Jermaine Pratt or Landon Roberts, but Brooks is on another level when healthy. Now, he's currently with the Dolphins, but here's where things get interesting. His contract is an outrageous $7.8 million this season, and roughly the same next year, but the guaranteed money zero. This is a player who's motivated. He's looking for that next contract. You give him a shot, maybe he earns that extension with Vegas. And from a scheme fit standpoint, he's best in a 34 defense. But I think Patrick Graham could make it work. With how multiple the Raiders schemes have been lately, especially if they start rotating in a 3rd linebacker more often, this would be a bold move. Trading Mayer for a defensive piece like Brooks would definitely signal that the Raiders are going all in on improving the middle of their defense. If it were up to me, I'd maybe look to send someone like a Landon Roberts back to Miami in the deal to make the cap numbers cleaner, but make no mistake, Brooks is a starter. He'd immediately elevate the unit. That being said, I'm not sure Miami would go for it. They probably see him as a cornerstone of their defense, but hey, we're talking hypotheticals here. And Michael Mayer is no throwing piece either. He's young, talented, and under control for years. So maybe that swap isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. All right, now let's move on to a name that's flying under the radar, but could make real sense. Ashtyn Davis. He's the type of player who doesn't get headlines, but could be exactly what the Raiders need right now. Center field. Safety, that true deep third guy that Patrick Graham has been missing. Davis was recently signed by Miami, but with the Dolphins trading for Fitzpatrick, Davis might suddenly be the odd man out. He's only 28, from the West Coast, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's not going to cost much. Either around $1.2 million. He only played about 260 snaps last season, but he showed flashes. 3 of 5 tackles to picks to pass breakups. When he's on, he's a ball hawk. He thrives in that deep safety role, which, let's be real, is a massive need for the Raiders right now. Yes, we've got Isaiah Polamau and Jeremy Chin, but Davis brings a different look. And the coaching connection, Ricky Manning Jr., former Raiders DBS coach, previously worked with the Jets where Davis played. So there's some familiarity there, and a deal like this I'd even be willing to sweeten the pot. Let's say the Dolphins get Mayer and a 5th rounder. The Raiders get Davis and a 4th rounder in return. That's the kind of deal that could make sense for both sides. Miami moves on from a surplus piece and Vegas fills a glaring hole. I know it's not the sexiest move, but it's one of the more realistic ones on this list. But let's get crazy now. Let's talk about Jalen Phillips. Now we're entering blockbuster territory. First-round talent, edge rusher with freakish athleticism. Problem is he just can't stay healthy. Torn ACL, popped Achilles, it's been rough. But when he's on the field, man, he's a game changer. Only 26 years old, playing on his 5th-year option. And Miami just drafted his potential replacement in Chop Robinson out of Penn State. That tells me something. Maybe Miami is getting ready to move on. Maybe they're not interested in giving Phillips a big extension after to endure a plague seasons. And if that's the case, the Raiders should absolutely pounce. Pairing Phillips with Max Crosby would give the Raiders a legit one to punch on the edge, assuming Jalen can stay on the field. The risk is there, but so is the reward. To make the deal work, you'd probably have to give up more than just Mayer. I'd consider throwing in someone like Dylan Parham. Look, I love Parham. Dude's been solid for us, but Miami has had a carousel on the offensive line for years. Parham could be a long-term answer for them. Add in someone like Cam Richardson for secondary depth and now you've got a deal that's hard for Miami to ignore. Phillips fills a huge need in Vegas. Mayer and Parham give the Dolphins the starters. It's bold, it's risky, but that's how you build a contender. And just when you thought it couldn't get any wilder, we've got one more name. One more player who would make this entire fan base lose its mind, and that's Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yeah, I know, he literally just got traded to the Dolphins, but hear me out. Patrick Graham coached him in Pittsburgh. They've got history, and if Miami is serious about clearing cap and building for the future, maybe they're willing to flip him for the right price. The Raiders have the cap space. They could extend him. And let's be honest, free safety is the biggest need on this roster. Fitzpatrick is a difference maker. A leader, a tone setter. If you could find a way to bring him to Vegas, you do it. I'd offer Mayer a handful of young guys like Trey Taylor, Cam Richardson, even a future 4th-round pick. It's a lot, I know, but you don't land a top-10 safety in his prime without paying up. And look, I get it. This is all hypothetical. Maybe there's only a 1% chance that any of this goes down. But even that 1% is worth talking about, especially in the dog days of the offseason, when we're all starving for real football news. These are the kinds of moves that front offices have to at least think about, and if the Dolphins came calling about Michael Mayer, these are the names that better be on the table. Now let's take a step back and really think about this. Michael Mayer isn't just some tight end who got thrown into the mix because of injury or lack of better options. He's a foundational player, the kind of guy you build an offense around, especially in a league where tight ends are becoming more important than ever. He's not a burner like Darren Waller, but what he lacks in pure speed he makes up for in hands, route running, blocking ability, and football IQ. So if the Dolphins or any other team come knocking, they better be ready to bring more than just filler names or latter-round picks to the table. That's why these hypothetical trades I'm throwing out aren't about fantasy football or Madden-style roster swaps. These are calculated ideas based on real team needs, contract situations, coaching ties, and organizational philosophy. The Raiders aren't desperate to deal Mayer. In fact, they probably have zero interest unless someone absolutely forces their hand. But if a trade were to happen, it would only be for players who fit the current vision of what this team is trying to build under Antonio Pierce, Pete Carroll, and the rest of this restructured leadership group. And let's not forget about fit. Fit is everything. You can have all the talent in the world, but if a guy doesn't mesh with the scheme or the locker room culture, it just doesn't work. That's one of the reasons why a name like Minkah Fitzpatrick actually makes sense. Despite how crazy it sounds, he's a scheme fit, he's a personality fit, and he brings the kind of leadership that can change the identity of a defense overnight. Add in the fact that he already has a working relationship with Patrick Graham, and suddenly the idea doesn't seem quite as far-fetched. You have to ask yourself this: what's the long-term vision? For the Raiders, is it building around young offensive talent like Mayer and hoping they grow into stars over time? Or is it about maximizing the current core guys like Max Crosby, Davante Adams, and even Aidan O'Connell by adding experienced pieces who can elevate the defense immediately? The answer might depend on how confident this coaching staff is in the young pieces they've already brought in on the defensive side. Because if they don't believe those guys can take the next step, then moving Mayer for a proven defensive player starts to make a lot more sense. And it's not just about the starting lineup. Depth matters too, especially in a league as brutal and injury-prone as the NFL. That's why players like Ashton Davis or even Quinton Bell aren't throwaways in these discussions. They may not be stars, but they're experienced guys who can step in and contribute without completely falling apart. And if they come as part of a package deal that also nets you better picks or higher upside starters, then they have value. From Miami's perspective, the idea of adding someone like Mayer might actually be pretty appealing. Darren Waller is flashy, sure, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And he's not exactly a blocking force in the run game. Mayer, on the other hand, gives you a complete tight end, someone who can help open up the ground game for a speedster like Raheem Mostert, while also being a safety blanket for Tua Tagovailoa over the middle. That kind of versatility is rare, and in a loaded AFC, you need every edge you can get. Let's also not ignore the fact that Miami's front office has shown they're willing to take big swings. They traded for Jalen Ramsey, they've been aggressive in the draft, and they're not shy about moving on from players who don't fit their long-term plans. That's why someone like Jalen Phillips could be on the block despite his obvious talent. They know that availability is just as important as ability. And with multiple serious injuries already on his resume, it's not crazy to think they might try to move him while he still has trade value. Of course, this all assumes that the Raiders are willing to shake things up in a major way. And while they've been cautious in free agency and methodical in the draft, there's always room for a bold move when the right opportunity presents itself. That's the fun part of the NFL offseason: speculation, imagination, and trying to find those deals that could change a franchise's direction overnight. So what does this all boil down to? It boils down to value. How much do the Raiders value Michael Mayer? How much do the Dolphins value immediate help versus future flexibility? And is there a middle ground where both teams feel like they're getting better, not just different? If it were up to me and I had to choose just one of these trades to pull the trigger on, I'd probably lean toward the Jalen Phillips deal, assuming you're getting him healthy and motivated. That kind of upside at a premium position is hard to ignore, and pairing him with Max Crosby could be lethal. But if you want stability, leadership, and instant impact in the secondary, then Minkah Fitzpatrick is the guy. That move would instantly change the entire identity of the Raiders' defense and send a message to the rest of the AFC West that this team is done playing around. Either way, the Raiders can't afford to be passive. The AFC is a battlefield, and standing still is the same as falling behind. So if a team like Miami comes to the table with serious offers, Vegas needs to at least listen. And if they decide that Mayer isn't untouchable after all, then the return better be massive, because anything less would be a disservice to what this team is trying to build. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL rumor mill is spinning fast, and the latest whispers coming out of Las Vegas are causing quite a stir, according to multiple unofficial sources and insiders close to the situation. The Las Vegas Raiders may be preparing a significant shakeup on the defensive line, potentially securing both John Franklin Mears and David ONYEMATA in what would be a pair of blockbuster trades. While no deal has been officially confirmed by the organization, murmurs are growing louder that the Raiders front office is looking to make an aggressive push to bolster their defensive front. Franklin Mears, known for his versatility and disruptive playmaking ability with the Jets, could bring much-needed pressure from the edge. Meanwhile, ONYEMATA, a dominant interior lineman with a reputation for collapsing pockets and stopping the run, would add a powerful presence in the trenches. Insiders suggest that Las Vegas has been eyeing both players for some time, and that recent front office activity indicates that something big may be brewing behind the scenes. The timing also aligns with the Raiders' recent moves in free agency and the draft, signaling that the franchise is committed to turning the defense into a formidable force in the AFC West. Fans and analysts alike are speculating on the price tag such a move would demand. Both Franklin Mears and ONYEMATA come with proven track records and hefty contracts, which means the Raiders would need to part with significant draft capital or players to make the deals work under the salary cap. Could we see a surprising name leave Vegas to make room? If these whispers hold any truth, this could mark a new era for the silver and black defense. Though nothing is set in stone, the mere possibility has fans buzzing. For now, it's all speculation, but where there's smoke in the NFL, there's often fire. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.